candle of hope, which is this candle you see before you. And the idea is that it's for people around the world that are seeking hope, for whatever reason, whether they're in a war-torn area, or they're dealing with family difficulties, or they have their own personal issues to deal with. So it is a recognition of those people around the world that are in a state where they want to retain some hope that will sustain them. So we share in that, and even for our own selves. So I'll just, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little song on this flute. And the way to think of it perhaps, and the way I did this the last time, of course I inverted the candle, which is wrong, but you'll see that the colors this way are the purples at the top, then you go into a blue, then a green, yellow, orange, and red. And this corresponds also to, in some people's way of thinking, the chakras. So the stones that I have laid out here, this is amethyst, it's the purple, and then sapphire, it's indigo, and it's this part of your so-called third eye. This is a light blue, and it's a communication. So you think about communication. And green is the heart. The next one along is kind of a citron color, yellow. It's your solar plexus, so it's your energy center. This is carnelian, it's sexual center. Won't talk much about that. It is the church after all. And this is the root chakra, which is Garneau. So perhaps these colors are in this battery you see behind you. Perhaps as I'm lighting this candle, even though I'll turn it back the way it was, you can think about those for yourself, for others, and just have a bit of a meditation on that. So. Of the world around us, the beautiful day that we have to experience the pleasure of each other's company. The theme of this service is creating sacred space. That sacred space will be created by each one of us as we interact. And I just want to take you through an exercise that will connect us not only to ourselves, but to our earth and to our wider universe. And I have this more or less pictorially established here on the floor. You might want to come up a little later on. The kids will get a chance to have a close look in a minute. It'll be here, but it shows where everything is right now. And this is for 10:45. It's probably pretty close to 10:45 at this stage. And it'll show the sun being over here, Mercury there, Venus is straight over here. The moon is just setting. Mars is...
How about Uranus?
Uranus isn't one of these ones because it's not one of the visible planets. So this is just deals with the visible planets. Saturn is, where's Saturn? Jupiter is just over on the horizon, and Saturn is below the horizon this way. So just spend a moment with me to close your eyes. Imagine the point between your eyebrows. Think of that for a minute. Now drop down to your heart. Think of being in your heart. And now drop down into your feet, your feet on the ground here in the church, on the floor of the church. Now into the ground that the church sits on, through the bones of our ancestors that are buried underneath, into the underground rivers, into the oil and gas that's below that area that provides us with warmth for our houses, fuel for our cars, and economy for our living, down into the molten part of the earth, which is the largest part, molten magma that is turning away as the earth rotates. We're moving close to 1,000 miles an hour, even though it feels like we're standing still. And that churning of the magma creates a magnetic field that comes right up and out into the Van Allen belts and protects us from some of the more harmful rays of the sun. But we ground ourselves right into that and think of how wonderful the earth is and how she protects us, and ground ourselves into that. Now work your way back up through the molten magma, into the oil and gas, into the underground rivers, through the graves of our ancestors, back to the soil that this church is sitting on, back into the floor of the church, into our feet, into our hearts, up to our third eye, and to the top of our head, to the crown, and up into the sky, connecting with the sun, the moon, the stars. Just take a moment to ground yourself. We confess that the nature of the church over the years has that it's fought its enemies, real and imagined. Because of that, people have suffered, and we have suffered. Examples are heretics, Jews, and diabolical witches. Because of its nature, the church has done the same thing to the native people in Canada. It has created a moral panic. They always protest. They are always asking for things. They are never satisfied. They need to get over it. Sometimes we are not even conscious of these attitudes because they have become second nature. In our society, we think we have gotten over racial prejudice against native people. However, 45% of racial comments are directed at native people, twice as many as the next group. We agree that this is part of our nature. Now we can turn to the assurance of pardon. We can say this together as well. We can be assured that through our own insight and by changing the other to our, we can come to see these problems as our problems and deal with them in so way we solve our own internal contradictions. Amen. Like living stones, let yourself be built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices that are acceptable. The last time I did this, I invited feedback, with the exception of stoning. But this time, the scripture seems to involve stoning, so there might be a message there. So what is Stephen's plight? If you have the courage sometimes to offer your opinions, there's consequences. And one of the most interesting passages that I find in the Gospel of Thomas, and that was the one that Lee read this morning, was consequences that Jesus talks about, and actions. So as we think about sacred space and creating it, what does it mean? There's consequences, but we're also dealing with very powerful things. So it causes you to be quite serious, I guess, about the whole idea. So over the last year, I think a lot of sacred space, in my view, is realizing that you're actually in sacred space. And there's a book that I found quite interesting called Canada's Stonehenge. And it was about a professor by the name of Gordon Freeman, who was a professor at the University of Alberta. And he grew up on the prairies, and his father was kind of interested in stuff, and they'd go up and dig out medicine wheels and stuff like that. And he came upon this medicine wheel that's just outside of Majorville, south of Calgary. And he wrote him and his wife spent 30 years out there. He wrote a book about it. And his analysis said that, you see on the front here, just the pile of rocks, which is at the center of it, but the thing actually occupies 30 square kilometers. And he took this analysis and he went back to England and he looked at Stonehenge, and it occupies, like, you have the circle of rocks, but it's all tied into all these things around Stonehenge, about 30 square kilometers. So I've spoken to elders in Edmonton, and they say this area, and I talked about it with the kids today, this area around here is sacred. And it's really about us being able to see the sacredness. And I'm not saying that I can see it, but I'm just working with you so we can perhaps open our eyes together to see where the sacred stuff lies. And John and I were at a beautiful meeting this Thursday, where as a result of what's going on with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the people that have been moved by this in United Church want to take the next step and to open their eyes and see how it is we can build together this sacred space. So in order to do that, over the last year or so, I made a trip with that intention in mind down into Central America. And I went out out to the Canadian coast, south of Prince Rupert, and I took the route of the proposed Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline, just because I wanted to ask the question, are there alternatives? Because it's going to be presented to us as it's in our interest to build this line. And it quickly became, well, not quickly, but I made connections with First Nation communities all the way along, and there are 3 major rivers flowing out of the North American continent to the west, the Skeena, the Fraser, and the Columbia. And over a period of, I would say, 3,000 years, those were cultivated by the native people in that area, and it became a very prosperous region and provided food and for the needs of many, many people for many years. And the commercial fishery has kind of undermined that. And in fact, now the Columbia River, and it's not really just a commercial fishery, the Columbia River, one of the most prolific salmon producing rivers, now doesn't produce one salmon. And that's largely because of hydroelectric power. So alternatives come in there. So I'm just, as we're thinking about creating a sacred space, one of the benefits of sacred space is it provides prosperity for people. And I think it's good for us to think in those terms. And my sense of the First Nations view is they think very carefully about these. They think about them in conscious terms, but they also have developed rituals where they can get into altered states of mind that enable you to see perhaps what's not obvious, so to your conscious mind. So that is one way I think of creating sacred space. So those are kind of my ideas, and I've got lots of them, but there's an opportunity this morning for any of you to share your ideas. So if anything comes to mind, there'll be an opportunity. So think about that and get ready to chirp up. So so the whole question: are there alternatives to what is being presented? And if you look at the people of this land that were here the longest, they certainly had a strong economy, and they basically had the place pretty much under control. Now, I think the church, and it's admitted to this itself, that they put in their own mind ideas that weren't exactly in line with what the Native people were, but there was reasons for that. So, kind of my thoughts on sacred space.
Hello, bonjour. Wapshki kabon edition kas kan ga kon glomai. Wapshki kedu do dem wapshki the Six Nations to Donjibar. I'm known as RW. I'm a Dutch-speaking full-blood Mohawk following the Ojibwe Medallion Three Fires teachings. So, as I said a year ago in Obima at the Truth and Reconciliation hearings there, I am speaking there. Because what I heard that day was a lot of pain and hurts, and my life, although I'm an intergenerational product of the residential schools, my life has been quite the opposite, and I wanted people to know too that there are so-called success stories within that, and my life has been through my adoption. It seems like a very mixed bag. I'm by no means a bush Indian, I always say that. I learned my teachings in the 90s with the elders and the old ones and the new ones up in Southern Ontario, up in the Peterborough area for quite a few years. There's a lot of traditional reserves there, a lot of traditional strong people, and I learned quite a bit the whole of the 90s at the Power Trail and all those things, and in a lodge. So this song that I want to do here today, Jim had asked me, I was to be here last year at some point, and I kind of was shy, so I didn't make it. So I'm here today, and I'm glad that I am. So thank you, Garneau United Church. For those that know me, my sister is the minister at Beverly United Church, Deborah Hoekstra. And so this song is a really old Ojibwe song from ceremonies, they say, that's for hundreds of years passed down. It speaks about the grandmothers, and when Jim said he was speaking about the sacredness of sacred space, it often is what you make it into a sacred space, but it does begin with the very first one, which the oldest grandmother is Skatmikwa, is upon who we live. It's on her back that we have, that's known as Mother Earth also. The second oldest grandmother is Nippiskizes, which is the moon. And the women go through their moon time every month. Western society has tended to make that something very gray, very dark. But it shouldn't be, because the women at that time are at their strongest, and the men have always been the women's helpers, never the other way around. So the women know that, they have that gift of life. They bring that forth. And it's within that cleansing every month that they renew themselves. And it's the same when you look at the moon cycles in the moon up there, the physical moon for us, with their cycles, with the half moon, quarter moon, and things like that. So they know how to do that, they know how to cleanse themselves. And the men are starting to, because the men also have their cycles. But that is still not really talked about, especially not in Western societies. I think it's starting to, I hear more and more about it. So that's a really great thing. The third oldest grandmother is that woman that gave you that gift of life, so your mom. Then we have those grandmothers, your nieces, your aunts, your daughters. We have those young girls who will carry this on in their lives and generations to come, and to pass this on. So I'll go through this normally with ceremonies. We do this 4 to 7 times. When we just kind of do it as a teaching, we do it for 3, or just in something like this, often for 4. So, I'll do this for you. And by the last one, I would ask that the men are standing to honor those women. And we think about those mothers, those physical mothers, grandmothers, aunties, uncles, all those women that have been an integral part in your life, and especially for us as the men.
Heard the voice of love it say, come unto me, I am the way. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. So if my day gets black as night, I know that love, it is my light. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. But now I know love, I've seen him shout. Nobody here can put me out. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. I know that love, it suits me well. I tried it on at the gate of hell. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Hold on, hold on, still hold on. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Hold on, hold on, keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Oh, now the river is chilly and wide. Love lives on every side. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Ooh, the river is chilly and cold, chills the body, but not the soul. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Hold on, hold on, keep your hand on the plow, hold on, hold on, people hold on, keep your hand on the plow, hold on, hold on. Hold on, keep your hand on the plow, hold on, hold on, people hold on, keep your hand on the plow, hold on, keep your hand on the plow.
Ha ha ha.